All right. So, can you see the screen?
I could see me. I can't see. Here we go. Okay.
So let's turn this one off here. Now, can you see me? All right. Mia's telling me they can see us. All right. So we'll get
Okay.
started. So, are you able to see me there, Dr. Nelson?
I can see you. Yes.
You can. Yes. All right. So
Yes.
we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll chop this one up, this part of it off as soon as it's um, as soon as it starts. I'm gonna go on LinkedIn just to double check to make sure it's on there. Let's see here. These always take a second here. Ah, we're alive. Awesome. Double check to make sure it's on there. There you go. Let's see here. Great. All right, I'll go ahead and start. All right, thank you for everyone joining. I do appreciate it. I know that I've talked to Dr. Nelson quite a while ago, and I thought he was really interesting to have a conversation with because he specializes in managing teams and getting the most out of it. Dr. Nelson tends to work on a lot of high-end platforms, so I'm really honored to have him. He's been shown on CNN, MSNBC, NPR. I like NPR quite a bit, and a lot of other channels and magazines, including Inc., which is a great magazine. So one of the things that we're going to talk about, we're going to break down how do we manage teams. He specializes in employment engagement. A lot of us are solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, so we have a lot of contractors. So I'm hoping that we can get some insight on that because we really can't go beyond our ceilings as far as our business is concerned without having proper procedures and teams in place and kind of making things happen. So I did something quite well, I thought was funny. Dr. Nelson reminds me of this actor. Who's this actor? What's his name?
Richard Dreyfuss.
Is that who that is?
I don't know. Oh, that's Liam Nielsen.
That's it. That has the same last name as you, but he looked like you because I remember you with your
No,
glasses, your
he's
sunglasses
Nielsen.
on.
It's not Nelson. It's got a different last
Oh,
name.
well, close enough. I just thought that I put it on there just to be a little facetious in there,
Okay.
you know.
I haven't got that one before. I've gotten Richard Dreyfuss before, and but
Yeah. Oh, really? Well, that's not Richard Dreyfuss. Moving forward. So Dr. Nelson, I do appreciate it and everything. Could you tell us a little? I said a little bit about you. Could you tell me a little more about what you do, what you've done, and what kind of makes you tick?
sure. Well, I've been on my current path for 27 years, which is mainly trying to help companies better manage their people, get um, improve morale, productivity, retention, um, and I actually did my doctoral dissertation on the topic of employee recognition because the greatest management principle in the world is you get what you reward. What you recognize
Mhm.
will be repeated. Whatever you inspect, you will get done. So, but in my
Well,
experience working with
a
several,
lot about taking action, you know.
yeah, and noticing people that took
Mm.
action and got results or did the desired behaviors you want them to, your core values or whatever it might be. Um, and as powerful as that principle is, most managers don't use it. And I in my doctoral work with Peter Drucker, the great Peter Drucker, father
I've
of
heard of
modern
him.
management. We focused on why exactly managers do or do not use recognition. As simple as thanking people when they do a good job. You can't get more common sense than that. But right now, 85% of employees say they feel overworked and underappreciated,
Hmm.
and only 12% feel that they're being recognized for the job they're doing. And three times as many, 34% say that the things that we do in our company that are supposed to motivate us don't do anything for me because I don't want
Right.
to celebrate my birthday, or I don't care about the holiday party, or my kids don't want to come to the summer picnic. So all that stuff that traditionally companies have done since 1940, isn't
Yeah.
working with today's employees. And so I've got the goods as to what works for today's employees, and I work with companies to fine tune that for their organization. Um,
So
but
does this
more
work
generically,
does this work with contractors and remote workers? 'Cause this is a big thing with the Great Resignation. A lot of people are working remote as employees, and as individual contractors. Like for example, I have
yes.
a good group of people, and they're not my employees. I have a full development team. I have writers, and I have other LinkedIn experts, other partners, and video photographers, and you name it. I have and a whole set of VAs. So I have these teams that I have to create systems around, and sometimes it is a bit hard to always recognize individuals within the teams and figure out what makes them tick.
Yes, yes. In the last couple of years, there's been a dramatic shift towards remote employees and virtual employees, and a lot of that's still going on. And you mentioned the Great Resignation. 4.5 million people a year, a month rather, have left their jobs each
Wow.
month over the last 18 months. That's continuing. So they're not leaving the workforce for the most part. During the pandemic, a lot of them left the workforce. 5 million people retired early, for example, um, and um, and women, 3.5 million women left the workforce because their
Yeah, a
kids
lot of
were,
them caretakers. Caretakers.
yeah,
They
well,
have to
they're
take
all of a
care of
sudden,
family members and mother, father, kids, and all that stuff, and
and that's
they just.
continuing. So
Mhm.
2 million of those people haven't come back to the workforce because, you know, like childcare. Like my son's in Seattle, and I've got
Mhm.
a 1-year-old granddaughter who I get
Oh,
is coming to the
congratulations.
house, coming tomorrow, or Friday. Is going to be here for first visit to the grand folks' house. So we're very excited about that. But they, so they're looking for childcare. You know what childcare goes for in Seattle right now?
Tell me.
$32 an hour.
I mean, I
That's
remember,
$66,500 a year for childcare.
yeah, so that's
And so long.
quite a bit of, how much does that break down a month? That's like 5
I,
grand a month. That's like $5,500 a month,
yeah. So if
right?
someone if someone
$5,500 a
is
month.
yeah, it's very
Wow,
pricey.
you need to
Yeah,
move.
sign me up, sign me up, But so if you have someone and you're staying home because you don't want to, you need childcare, it's not that hard to say, "Hey, I could take care of someone else's kid and I'll charge
Yeah,
them."
yeah.
You're getting
Allows you to connect the
66,000.
dots and
Yeah, so let me do 2 kids, I have 3 kids. That's manageable, and I'll
yeah.
be sitting great,
Make an extra 100K a year, right?
Yeah, what
Well,
the
I
hell?
don't think all the prices are same as Seattle. I have two grown boys, right? And I have I'm a single parent, and I have a 6-year-old, right? But I have two boys that are grown, and well, they're 18 and above. And I remember when I was married, and I had to pay childcare, and oh, that's like 18 years ago. I was still paying a good, I don't know, $1,200, $1,400 a month then. And I don't live in a
Yeah.
big city. We were out in the south of Atlanta at the time, near
Mhm.
something called Peachtree City. And that was
I
a
know that.
fairly affordable area at the time. And I can imagine if it was in city or a larger city like Seattle, the price could be double that at the time, you
Well,
know.
there's a lot of course, daycare centers where you can drop your kid off, but to what they found out in a hurry, that they needed to register their kid before they were born to get on the list to get into a
Oh my
drop off.
goodness.
It's like nuts. It's really nuts.
Yeah.
And so that problem's continuing. But most of the for the Great Resignation, most of the job changing and turnover has occurred in the hospitality sector, hospitality, restaurants, hotels, um, that type of thing. And I think related to that, retail, healthcare, low level healthcare, and all those jobs, all those essential jobs. And here's part
Hmm.
of what happened is during the pandemic, those essential jobs uh, were kind of low paid. You know, you're working
Hmm.
in a grocery store or something, and it doesn't pay that much, but it pays, okay. And then suddenly pandemic came, and you had to now you're taking your life into your hands to go to work, to maybe get
Yeah.
COVID, and then once you know, uh, every third person, when you ask them, "Hey, could you put your mask on?" Our manager requires it. Then they lash out at you, and they they want to. Let me see your manager right now, and all it's
Oh yeah, you have a lot
it's
of
too
left and
much.
right type of like political and those individuals. So I
So
think it's a
my
little
point,
harsher in different states and cities and stuff. So
yeah,
some
but
were
the
leaning.
job contract changed. So the job I
Yeah.
had down, it wasn't a big hassle. Now it's a big hassle. Plus, I have my health at threat. It's not
Yeah.
worth no $10, 15, 12 bucks, $17 an hour. It's not worth it to me. So we that's where four times churn has been in that sector opposed
Mm.
to other sectors where people are changing jobs to get paid maybe 50 cents more in a job across the
Well,
street.
everything is more money. I was living in Dunwoody as a part of Atlanta, and I had a nice 2 bedroom apartment. Right, it was plush. But when I first got in there, I paid $1,600 for it, um, and I was high ceilings and all the amenities and part covered garage and all the had elevated had everything that you pretty much want in a modern place. And I looked again recently, and this was probably maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. Yeah, maybe 4 years ago, right? The same apartment, which is not new any longer, is they're running at $3,000 a month.
Yeah, yeah.
So the
Well,
cost of living, yeah, the cost of living has quite increased in there. We do have
well,
a question though for you. Did you see
yeah,
that question?
I do. Let me address that, but let me just react to what you just said. I'm in
Oh,
San
sure.
Diego, where a rent increased 30% in San Diego in the last year, and housing prices for those that own homes across the country, everyone's home doubled in value for the most part over the last couple 3 years.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, we're ground central for inflation, and we have the highest gas prices in the country. I think it's because we're too
Oh
easygoing. We're paid in
yeah.
sunshine
We're
here.
we're we're pretty protected to a certain point in Georgia. You can get unleaded, regular unleaded for around $3 and change here.
Yeah,
Which is
we're still
Seattle's. You're talking about 450 and stuff, or just for
I
the
think
regular. Like
five
most
fifty
cars can't
five
even take
fifty
the
here.
regular unleaded anymore.
Yeah, we're at 550 here. But yeah,
Oh my
addressing
gosh.
Asar's question, he asked, how can I motivate a team member who's extremely temperamental to the work? One day he works hard, the next day he doesn't care at all. And this I've seen this before. And for example, this happens a lot in
Great
like I was
question.
working. It is a great question, and it's kind of inconsistent. And we wish everyone would be consistent, but they're not. They have moods, they have personalities. If something went wrong at home, they're gonna bring it to the job, and vice versa. By the way, so you gotta how can you make that person more dependable? And the journey you have to take is to one lead with lead with a positive. So you gotta thank and notice him for or her for the things they're doing well, which could start with just showing up on time. you know, I worked with McDonald's, and they had a problem with getting the young kids to actually come to work on time because they never had to do it before. And a lot of millennials. Someone gave me the definition of millennial as someone that they view it as college plus a paycheck. So the freedom they had in college to sleep in and do whatever,
Yeah.
they want to do that at
Well,
work,
that's
but give you a
society. A
check
lot of
too.
society on the younger generation, especially, people don't know how to show up. It's kind of
75%
weird.
of the workforce is going to be millennials and Gen Z. So you got to. This is a relevant question. So, for example, at McDonald's, when they had a problem getting people there at time, I asked, "Well, what are you doing? How do you handle scheduling?" Well, the assistant manager schedules everyone. Okay, and how do they do that? Well, they just fill in names. And well, what if you gave the people with the best attendance their first choice of schedule? And then you go down the line, and the last person that
Oh,
gets scheduled is the person that's not very good at showing up anyway. And maybe they'll quit, and you'll be better off, And they go, "God, it's genius." No, it's common
yeah,
sense,
that's a great
And
idea.
so,
So you get a
so
reward
I'd say,
system based on people showing up, and the ones that are problematic, they'll kind of weed themselves out. If they
yes.
don't
So
want to
the
address,
most,
they don't want to address some of their shortcoming. I will tell
yeah, or
you,
the
I haven't had a job in many years. I think the last job I ran a contract for Cricket as a project manager, maybe 8 years ago. I don't know, 10 years ago. I don't know what it was.
mhm.
And I noticed it's easier to control the flow of information if you have your own company. But once you're in the management, it's almost impossible because as a project manager, you do not have the ability to hire and fire, right? And so what I had to do at Cricket, which is the AT&T company, I had to say, look, um, what I would sit down and I would say, um, okay, can I guarantee what's your estimate on this? And they didn't like that at first. I said, well, I will give you an estimate, but you can change the estimate, right? And a couple of them got a little offended, saying, "Why would you estimate my time?" I said, "Well, because you didn't estimate it, so you can make a change to it. It's just a suggestion." But so once they estimated time to do something, they're held accountable. Accountability is a huge issue because you don't have the ability to hire or fire. And when they come saying, "Well, I was working for another project manager doing something else," I said, "Did you tell them that you already dedicate your time for this?" She said, "No." I said, "Well, maybe you should do that." He said, "Why don't you talk to her?" I said, "Because you made an agreement with me." And so I was trying to put a little bit of responsibility so they can at least start estimating. And my estimates are
Yeah,
pretty good because I did all the work that they did before. But once they got into the system of saying, "Yeah, that sounds about right," they felt a little more empowered. Uh,
yeah,
owning my own company owning my own company is a little bit different. You can dictate stuff a little more, but you can have a direct conversation because you're working with contractors and other professionals. So if it's not working out, you just got to make adjustments. And if that person is not doing what needs to happen for the sake of the client, you just go ahead and finish up the work, and then you move on to another contractor that can actually fulfill what needs to happen.
So Troy, yeah, what you're talking about is a key element of engaging employees, and that's clear goals and expectations. And so if they don't
Mm.
have that themselves, you help to set that up for them. No one could do a job without knowing what's expected. And if they have a plan for it, then
Yeah,
your
that's
plan
true. I
will.
didn't even think about that. So they may be a great designer or a great programmer, but maybe they're awful estimating, which is the vast majority
Yeah.
of them because they're not really
Or
trained to estimate. When I had my IT company, we had designers and developers, and the designers say, "Oh, the programmers know what they're doing. They've been doing this a lot." And the programmers say, "Designers know what they're doing because they design a lot." So I put them in the same bucket. And
yeah,
he
or get
says,
them talking
and
together.
my yeah, and they said the art director said, "Well, I don't know how long it takes to build this avatar." I said, "Well, how many avatars did you build?" "Oh, about 20 of them." "So you're trying to tell me you don't know how long this takes?"
Well
And he had to
done.
think
Yeah.
about it. Like, maybe I do. I don't know. And so you break down the time estimate on this type of project in the oddities, and the programmer, the same thing is, well, this module is 8 hours, and I have to stop them. I said, to program this module is 8 hours? He says, yeah. I said, how long does it take to set the system up? oh yeah, it takes about 2 hours, and then tweak it 2 hours to run the first draft of this module, 8 hours for the client. What's the chance of the client approving? 50% maybe.
Yeah.
I said, what's the chance of internal changes? 50%, And so that 8 hours is really 40 hours of work. And they see it, they
Yeah.
understand that, oh, I get it. So I love the fact that if people are able to think along the lines of how long does this realistically take,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing you're doing with that, like you mentioned, like a designer, for you get an experienced designer, they feel it's their job, and you give me the thing and I'll do what I do. And wait a minute, you see a lot of designs that they're beautiful, but they're not practical. Where's the
oh
connection
yeah.
button? So it's sort of like you got to reel them in some, or you got to give them the boundaries of here's what I need, and they may not be willing to do that because they got to do it. They want to do it their way. Then you go find their own job then, because this is a job I got here. Anyway, I want to get back to. And by the way, shout out to Paige Van Pelt. Hey, thanks for joining us. Long time. But as Ezra's question, so my take on that, you got uneven performance. You got to catch that person doing things right, and that builds the relationship. And then once they see that you're on their side, you can give them more feedback, constructive feedback. It's hard to do that if you don't have a working relationship yet, because then they feel like you're just they take it harder, and then they focus on avoiding you. So punishment leads to avoidance, and you don't want your employee to avoid you. So you got to set the pattern of here's how we're working together, and it starts with catching them doing things right. And then once you've got that going, then you can say, hey, you do such a great job at these things, but in the case where you said that they're temperamental, and then one day they don't care at all, then on those days, there's some days where I don't know if you're in a mood or something bad happened at home, but when you get to work and you don't feel like, it doesn't seem like you're up for wanting to be there, then on those days your productivity is like zero, and so you're great on the other days. So we need to bring bottom there, and so let's talk about how you can, because we all have days like that. You don't want to get out of bed, or you never
Oh, I
wake
had
up.
one yesterday. Yeah. I had one yesterday. The weather was bad, and one of my clients, although I'll do all the LinkedIn stuff for clients, I have a team for development, and some stuff that gets out of your control, and you just have one of those long days.
Yeah. Yeah, and that just sharing that story, that everyone has bad days, but you have to have a way to deal with that. It's not very professional for you to come in and take your bad day out on your coworkers or the client. That's not going to be acceptable. So, what could
Yeah.
help you that? How about this? When you got one of those days, come see me first, and I'll give you a little pep talk. We'll talk about what we're excited about working on today. And you try different, but so at that point you're giving them the message that you notice that they're not 100% on some days, and you need to get them in the game, and that's their responsibility. You're willing to help them because you're your leader, and there could be, as Peter Drucker defines management as getting the work done through others. So it's very important to you for them to do the work, and you're there to help them as need be. And so we need to fix this problem we have together. It's not just your problem; it's our problem, because I need you to be on point when you're actually at work. And so that's what I would suggest as a strategy to.
Well, on a development team, that's one reason they have the little scrums. A scrum is a meeting with everyone. They stand up for a minute and tell them what they're doing, so you can get kind of a visual and a high level picture. And then later on, they can kind of say, "Hey, I'm not feeling 100%." Although I feel like I shouldn't tell people if I'm feeling good or not. I just push through it. I had a migraine yesterday, and I was just talking like this. They kind of knew.
I think it's perfectly okay to say, I can tell you I've got a splitting headache, and I apologize if I'm not coming, but I'm excited to be here, and just bear with me. And people will, or I have a cold or whatever. I had a long night. I was working on a project.
Yeah.
People are understanding, but by giving them that information, they can not read something else into it or think that you're mad at them, because of how you're
Oh, we
acting.
just skipped the question. I don't know how to scroll back down on this thing, but one question was sometimes the managers have hidden expectations. How do you identify that, or how is that expressed on it? I wouldn't say hidden expectations, maybe hidden agendas, maybe as well. Maybe it's a mix of the two. It's scrolled down already.
Yeah.
I found out that I am a terrible employee, like me personally, right? I'm not built for that because I don't have the ability to schmooze. I'm very direct, and that is an awful. It's a great entrepreneur because clients want to hear it directly and they want to fix the problem. But when you're in an employee situation, you got to play ball in a different way. And so, how do you handle the manager's hidden expectations?
Well, as an employee, I think most employees don't realize that they can they can ask for things, and so
Mm.
because a lot of managers aren't very good at feedback, for example, and you can I know employees that they went to their boss and say, hey, I know I'm committed to doing my best work for you, but I can't do it in a vacuum. So can you give me feedback on how I'm doing so I know what things that you like and what things I need to fix and
Mhm.
and could we do that once a week or even once a day depending on the job? And I think most managers would say, yeah, we could do that. I didn't know you needed that, but sure, we could do that. And so so for those
Mm.
people that don't get recognition, and that's uh, only 12% of employees feel that they get are recognized for doing the job they're doing.
Mhm.
So that's a pretty low bar, although
Yeah.
80% of managers think they're pretty good at it. So that's kind of a knowing doing gap right there. So if you're one of those employees that aren't getting feedback you need or the thanks or the praise, ask for it. And if you think the manager has a hidden agenda, I would just ask about that. It seems like, is that everything that's going on that I need to know? Or it seems like
Mhm.
you seem a little hesitant. So you can manage your manager as a practical.
Yeah. It seems like a lot
Yeah,
of it is communication on a very respectful level. And
absolutely.
I would say I was very open about stuff. I'm probably too open. So many years ago when I worked at other agencies, I had a private conversation and I just laid it out on them, and that's probably not the best thing to do. Because
Yeah.
I'm very
Well,
not in a rude way, but I'm very open and like, look, I'm noticing this. What do I have to do to fix it? And I guess I'm very direct, and that does not work out well for a lot of people. It didn't
I'm
work out
also
well for me.
I'm in the
Yeah, so I
same
just didn't have
same
that
boat.
skill.
I'm
I'm
very
s
open and almost too much communication, and so
Yeah, so sometimes
you tell them like you're saying now. You tell that about you. So hey, if I might give you more than you need here, but just bear with me because
yeah.
it might be helpful. And if it's
So
not,
so
just say so, and then we'll have shorter meetings, and you adjust
yeah.
together. You adjust together.
Well, I will
So
tell you this thing. Well, one time I was working at an agency, and there was a manager, and she was also always perturbed with me, right? So I took her to the side. I said, "Look," and I looked at her in her face. And I said, "I'm not a normal person, okay? So it may seem like I don't like you or I'm not super happy because I have a kind of a poker face and that's just how I'm built." I said, "But I honestly don't care if you like me or you don't. But if you tell me to do something, I will do my best to make sure the job is done. So I don't take it personal. This is just how I am. So I want you to communicate what you want me to do." And she was like, "Really?" I said, "Honestly, yes." Because I said, I have a hard time at the time, was much younger. I have a hard time reading in between the lines, and I'm so
mhm.
literal. So if you don't tell me and you kind of give me a clue, I said, I'm a little slow. I may not get it. And that worked out really well. We've never had an issue after that. So I think
There you go. There you go.
understanding.
So you did that, and that was with your manager.
Yeah, so I had my own company, but my major client's project manager.
I
And
see.
since I have some alpha traits, she felt that I was a little difficult, and I wasn't. I was very direct, and I wasn't
Well,
difficult. Like, oh, you need this done? I'm on it. you know. So I wasn't trying to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
a jerk, but it's
So you
just like I'm not all the niceties I'm not used to, you know. I don't, you
so the
know, it's
personality you have a in the disc model of personality, you're a high D, you're very dominant, and that's can be very intimidating for other people. But
yeah.
but by sharing, giving that disclaimer of saying this is how I am, don't take it personally. I like to cut to the chase, and what do you want me to do? And if someone
Mhm.
else is more um, often there's another personality type that's more gregarious that
Yeah, there's
they don't
the four quadrants there.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
and so they
Yeah.
don't want to even work with you until we get to know each other and there's a relationship. So you
Yeah.
you have to say, yeah, you're important to me, but I like to look for a merger of those perspectives. The saying, and maybe you do some of the the social stuff to feel that that they like you, and
I will
that
tell you, it took me many years to blend my D side to the other. I forget which one the other one is, and it was very difficult because I think genetically I'm built to this function, you know, and
yeah
I had little want or care to be personable, you know. And
to get
as
to
of
know you.
late, I found how important that is, you know, how
Yeah,
important to do all those. Anyway,
it's really important because
what I see
they
some
don't just
questions
want to.
here, but I
Okay.
want to pause real quick and just touch on some of the points real quick, and maybe we can generate questions around that as well.
Well, let's
So the
let's
kind of
do
the
the let's
five
do the
points that we're talking about, and
let's deal with the
Dr.
question. Troy, let's deal with the questions first because people came and we should attend to their questions first, and
You know
we can
what?
get back to the
You're
other.
right. Let's do that.
So the person Asher asked another question on motivating a new grad, and that they tend to always come back to the boss when they could be looking up stuff themselves or find another. And again, that's a management of expectations thing. And the first time, maybe that's good. Thanks for bringing up a concern you had, and let's talk about it. But if they keep doing it, say, you know. I think you've got it. You don't need to check with me first. I appreciate you having done that, but I trust where you're at. So this is a relationship thing that you've built the trust. So now you don't need to run everything by me before you do it, or need to check with me as to what to do. You see what we're doing. We've been working together for a while, and so I trust you to go ahead. And so that's a evolution on the delegation scale from
Well, I think a
initially
lot of
telling
it too
people
is if
exactly what
someone
to
is.
do
Mhm.
and
I
then
think a lot of
backing off
people that
that.
are really skilled and they're new at it, they may not understand what their boundaries are. I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen that quite
yeah.
a bit.
Or the new employee wants to please you, so they're running
Uh,
back all the time to
yeah.
check and say, "Hey, I appreciate that, but you don't need to do that." That's the first thing is saying it's okay not to do that, and maybe
Mhm.
and you move from going to tell you exactly what to do to now I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do because you've done that before, but bring up a question if you need if you get stuck. To then you've done that, and then after a while you say, "You know what? You don't need to talk to me. I trust you to do the task as we've talked about, and just let me know when it's done, or if you really get bogged down." And so that's a typical managing expectations job, and people do evolve in the job the more they do that, and they evolve the more that they work with you and they get to know you. Then
Mhm.
also, they're adjusting to you, and then you're adjusting to them. So
Mhm.
that's all part of a good manager. A good manager has the focus of the employee foremost, and then you guide that, so you want to praise progress, but then you want to praise progress towards the end goal. And the end goal, if you want them to be able to do certain responsibilities
Mhm.
on their own, you can't
Mhm.
have them coming back to you nonstop after they've been doing it for a year. That's crazy. We don't need two people to do this
Mhm.
project. We just so now I trust you to do it, so just do it, and then let me know if there's a problem. And then even after that, it goes down beyond after that. So you don't even have to tell me after you've done it because I trust you. So um, we have Bill Freeman is U.S. Air Force retired. I'm an Air Force brat, so good to have you on the call. Is to have the manager
Yep.
sit down and establish goals for the year. Well, absolutely. It all starts with clear goals and expectations, and that could be a yearly, that could be monthly, weekly, even daily, depending on the job.
Yeah,
And there's no
in a Scrum
surprise.
environment, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that tends to be on a 2 week cycle. Um, my
Yeah.
my uh, my wife works on it's a programmer. She works on that cycle. And I love the fact that they have a morning stand-up meeting, they call it, where they just go around the
Mm-hmm.
group, and it's virtual or in person, that everyone says what they got done yesterday, what they're working on today, and any potential obstacles they expect to run into. And at the end of that, that's like 15 minutes. We go around the group, and at the end of the group, then we say, okay, well, Tony, you got the biggest challenge today in your job. If you need any help with that, because that's key to our group success,
Mm-hmm.
if there's we all want to be successful, but you've got the hardest task today. If you need my help, let me know, because we'll all jump in to help you if you get bogged down. And that's how we're going to be as good as our weakest link. And that's a great thing. That's a Scrum environment. And then at the end of 2 weeks, they debrief, which then you have learnings from that. And then they do some celebration too. They do a team building, they bring in a pizza, and it's a nice routine to take reflect and learn, and then talk about the next 2 weeks. So that works very, very well. And then you kind of fine tune that process. I know I worked with the company in Houston where they did that same thing, where 15-minute stand-up meeting, and then after that, the next level in the company had a 15-minute meeting, and after that, the next level. And by the end of the first hour, all the executive management knew what issues were going on in the company today, and it was very powerful. That process,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually called it a momentum. That was very powerful for them to get stuff done. And for example, they had quarterly goals. A lot of companies are kind of, they have strategic goals, but they don't filter down to to the people. So they're
Mm-hmm.
on the wall in the conference room, and that's
Yeah.
not going to help us
So,
get there.
so,
So
so the actual workers or the people that are actually doing the work towards the goals don't even know the goals exist,
yeah,
but
yeah,
not
and
in a
so
tangible way, I imagine.
yeah, and it's and they're doing their job, and there's a disconnect between. And I see this a lot in corporations, that they say these things are important, driving
Mm-hmm.
revenues and innovation and customer service, and then they recognize. And I remember, recognition is the most powerful management principle that we know, to
Mm-hmm.
catch people doing things right. But they don't recognize those things that we just said are most important. They recognize these things over here that have nothing to do with those things. So
Yeah,
we're gonna
because
have
those
we're gonna
things are in
celebrate.
their face. Those things are
Yeah.
on top of their mind. They're not making that shift for the bigger picture. Yeah.
Well, they end up recognizing years of service, and people's birthdays. They do something, and they do you know a year-end holiday party and a summer picnic, and they think they're all over it. And like I say, you know what? You're not even in the game.
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah.
What you're doing has
Well,
zero
Parker
relevance for
was
today's
Parker was
employees.
asking about retention. I think that rolls into retention. There's some of my clients and a lot of coaches are designed for company retention. And he's talking about leading a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So, talking about problematic employees. Um,
Yeah, no, that's a key question, because you know, we've got the younger generation now, and not to bag on them, but they have a different outlook on work. And as I indicated,
mm,
for a lot of them, they view it around them. They're a little bit more me centric, and here's how I like to. I don't like coming to work until later, sleeping in, as just one example. Well, it might be, well, either you can't do that, and that's
yeah.
old line company. So you got to be in your desk at 8:30, and you could
Yeah.
probably force that, but then people are gonna be gone by 4.
Well, contractors you can't, other than meetings. Employees is a different thing. I had a discussion actually last night with one of my clients that actually has her own business that does very well, and she's an employee. And we had to talk. She says, "You know what? We talked about my schedule on hiring. Now the managers are flipping my schedule." And so sometimes those things are problematic because you were hired for one thing, and then now the when you're doing the job, like for example, for her thing is she works at night. That's where she works, and that was her stipulation.
Uh-huh,
And she says,
uh-huh.
I from 6:30 to 3 in the morning, whatever it is, she works at night, and that's where
Mhm.
she the computer systems or have a low load on it and whatever she's doing.
That's her sweet spot. She knows her own work patterns, and we have some
But
people
her
are
managers are now saying, no, you need to clock in at this point, and now you have to do that. So sometimes there's a
that's
communication gap in
that
that.
that on that lay of the land. I've seen a lot of that. It's
Oh,
you need to go somewhere else because they're stuck in the
yeah,
past and
it's
they're trying
true.
to
That's true.
manage by control. And there's a lot of managers that honestly there's a lot of managers that they can't accept someone doing work
Yeah,
that they can't see. If I can't see them, I don't know they're working. They have a really low bar for success because that's what they grown up with in their life and their career. That
you're
they can always see
absolutely
their
right,
people.
and that's kind of what I
And
told her too. I said, you know what? It sounds like you have a manager that just wants what they want and is not really worried about the outcome. He's, yeah, I'm supposed to do
yeah,
25
yeah,
cases a week, and that's what they hired me for. But
yeah,
I have other things going on during the other time. I said, I totally get
yeah,
it. It's a communication thing, you know. And I
yeah,
said,
yeah.
maybe you might have to go somewhere
They're
else.
they're only going to view you as a hard worker if you show up, and as long as you're here, and then 25 cases, just do them quick, get them done. And it's like, then they're not caring about the quality. That's not going to work. So I
Yeah.
actually was working in Albuquerque the last couple of years, and I remember hearing about one company where they got a new CEO, and he laid down the law. He said, "I expect everyone to be in their desk at 8:30. Everyone." And he's all hands meetings telling this. This is how it's going to be. If you're if you're dedicated, I expect you to be here. This is where the work gets done. And this one woman in the back raised her hands. I'm sorry, sir, I can't do that. What do you mean you can't do that? Well,
Hmm.
I'm a single mom. I got 2 kids. I don't have someone else to drop them off at school or to pick them up at 3. And I also
Yeah.
have an ailing parent. I'm in a sandwich generation. I've got to take care of an ailing parent, and if the phone rings in the next 10 minutes, I might have to take my mom to the emergency room. And that's my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Well, if you expect to be successful in this job, you got to be here 8:30 tomorrow. What choice did she had? She resigned. Now it
Yeah.
turned out
She
that
has to
that
find another job.
but guess what? That woman was the top revenue producer for that company. Why she
And
was so
oh,
why
wow.
she was so motivated is that because she had a job that worked with her schedule. So she put the kids to bed, and,
Yeah.
and then
Good
she
point.
dug in and spent 3 hours playing the next day and her calls and whatnot. She was all over it. Top revenue producer. Now she's a top revenue producer for someone else because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
shot themselves in the foot.
Because of the CEO or whoever was in charge was not
Yeah.
really not they didn't even know this person. That's the strangest thing. So I'm taking over this company and you're my top revenue producer. I don't know who you are. Isn't that
Yeah, yeah.
there's a
Well,
huge disconnect with
to
that.
go back to your point, that's secondary to the appearances that I expect that everyone here that can
Yeah.
see, and I can call you in my office right now if I need to. It's a power trip. And so
Well,
yeah, you're gonna
yeah.
be better off finding an environment that better fits who you are. And
Yeah.
if you have that type of production, that type of
Well,
results, it won't
I
be that
had
hard.
yeah, I had a developer, which he's a good friend of mine, still to this day, and he was really talented, right? But he could not make a deadline to save his life. He couldn't even make the stand up meetings, right? Always
Mhm.
late. I don't know what's going on. He's like 40s, 50s at the time. He's an adult, right? And he knows
What
this
type of work?
environment. He could not make the meetings in time or any deadlines, and so we had to have a talk. He says, "Dude, I love you. You do great work. You are massively talented." I said, "But if you can't make these deadlines, I can't work with you. I can't give you any more work."
Yeah.
And it was just like some people are. I don't want to say idiot savant because that's the wrong word. They're savants, but they lack certain area skills that
Prima
are
donnas.
detrimental to the business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, again, making deliveries is dates is pretty important, and delivering as you say you will is pretty important. So, it's a fundamental job responsibility they didn't pick up, in their 20s. Now they're 40, and maybe they're used to being. If they were such a great, would you say they were a programmer? What was their job they did?
Yeah, he's multi-talented. He was like having 5 people,
Okay.
Of
Well,
course,
then
he
if you
may
got
not
some,
have been the best programmer, but he had enough of the pieces to be very valuable. And so I suspect on all his other jobs, they allow him to get his deadlines late because he would do a lot of extra work because he was very passionate.
yeah,
But you did this, this, and this. We didn't ask for this. We asked for this. That's what they're paying for, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so yeah, so ultimately we only could give him certain projects that weren't deadline specific,
Yeah,
you know.
well, you get someone like that, and they're very good at what they're doing. But then they get in the project, and all of a sudden they start like in your case, they start adding features and oh, this would be great. Let's do this and add this, and
Who's going to
well,
pay for that?
that's like specs creep, and that's actually you might think that's nice, but unless the customer is willing to pay for it, it's a waste of time. So we don't need you
Yeah.
just spinning out new features on something we didn't ask for and expecting us to pay you. That's
Yeah.
not going to cut it. So you got to give them that
He
feedback.
needed to show up on the daily stand-ups because certain people need a short leash, so to speak, you know,
Yeah.
and other
Well, then you have
people
to.
you let them run free, you know.
So that in that case, you need to dig deep on what's going to take him to show up on time. And if
Yeah,
there's some people that are if they're on time, they feel they're 10 minutes late, and there's a lot of people that they try to be on time, but they're always 10 minutes, late or 20 minutes late. And then if you have someone that's key, that's affecting the group, you need to focus on that and say,
yeah,
you're so against, you got to start with the positive. You're so good at the things you do, and you're so creative, and you got your multitask, and we love all that. But all that goes for naught if you don't make the meeting. So what would
yeah.
it
You do a
take to
sandwich.
have you
You
make
do
the
something.
meeting?
You tell them something good. You tell them something bad, and then you try to create something good, a solution. Right? I call that a sandwich.
Yeah, 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 sandwich. But it doesn't. If it's got to be sincere. So and
Ah,
it,
sincere. Yeah,
really
yeah.
digging. Oh yeah, I forgot sincerity. But digging deep on that, it would be trying to help them say, well, tell me what's your routine on getting up, and well, alarm goes off and I turn it off, and then sometimes I oversleep. Well, I think I see the problem here. Well, what
Yeah.
do you set a second alarm? Yeah, it rings again. I turn it off again. Okay. Well, you got to stop doing that, or you need
But isn't
something
that what
else.
coaches are for? Like those life coaches.
Yeah.
I'm a LinkedIn coach, and I have my own coaches. I'll be honest with you. I'm very good at certain things, but sometimes I can't see what's right in front of my face, right? And that's why you have coaches, you know,
Yeah.
daily routines
Yeah.
and all that. And I pay them. They're quite expensive. My hourly rate's pretty high, and their rate is just as high. And and
Yeah.
so if I'm going to pay money, if I'm going to pay money for a coach, I'm going to listen to what they have to say, you know?
Yeah.
So, that might be a good service to add to your employees. Have a separate third person party as a benefit. I don't know. I'm making this stuff off the top of my head. What do you think about that,
Well,
Dr. Nelson?
I think, or better yet, have the manager do that task, because every manager has to be a coach, and they have to be a cheerleader, and they have to be a problem solver. So I think it'd be, instead of pawning off on the third party and someone outside the company, if we're gonna make that could be have value, but I would first try to see how can we get the manager doing the things that help the person be more effective. And gosh, it's but when it comes down to it, it's like some people are, maybe a lot of people are just in the wrong job. It's sort of,
Yeah.
I worked for a bank, Wells Fargo, and I remember I was in the training department, and someone came, and it's just the darndest thing that they're transposing numbers, and that's a kind of a dyslexia for numbers, I guess. But you know, I don't care how much we trained her. That was, she didn't see it like that, and she's in the wrong
Oh,
job. Let's try her in a different
yeah.
job. Doesn't mean we have to fire her if she's got other good qualities, but let's find out a place that works for both of
Yeah,
us.
so sometimes you can move someone from one department to another where they can excel in. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and there's a
Possibly,
lot of.
possibly.
Yes, that's true, and especially because people's motivation changes over their
Mhm.
career, over the job, and maybe they're burned out in this job. Maybe Land's End in Wisconsin, they're in a very small market, and so they can't afford to lose anyone. So they have
Hmm.
an open policy that if there's another department you'd like to try working in, they automatically put you there for 2 weeks to check it out. And at the end of the
Hmm.
2 weeks, say, "What do you think? Would you rather work here or in the previous job you had?" And, "Well, I like this new job a little bit better." "Okay, you're good. We'll leave you there." They'd rather do
Yeah.
that than have the person quit. Now they got to hire someone else in a tight
Oh
market.
yeah, because the
Yeah,
hiring
so
from ground zero is much more costly because recruiter
yeah,
fees, if they have any, 20% from a
well,
first
just
year
taking
salary,
the
and
time
then
of
the two
interviewing, and
months
then
or whatever training, yeah, and
two
all that
months,
stuff.
or for a lot of jobs, really takes 6 months to get up to speed where you're productive. So that's a
Yeah.
big. The average cost, according to the Society for Human Resource Management, is a year and a half salary to replace a person. Um, and so, if it's the case, if you're focused on retention, you've got to get better at how you hire, and make
Hmm.
sure there's a fit. And then you've got to manage from the way I'm indicating in focusing on the positives, and setting goals
Hmm.
together. So the two most, I was in a PhD program for a long time, and I looked at a lot of leadership models and studies, and the two most resilient principles of management is, number one, is starts with goals and expectations. You got to make it
Hmm.
clear, and ideally that's a discussion. It's not just telling people here's how you do it. And some jobs you might need to do that if they've never done it before. But then
Hmm.
after you do that, you got to catch them doing it right to reinforce
Yeah.
the right thing. And a
After the
lot
fifth time,
yeah,
it takes a while to do things the way you should do it.
and
One
that's
thing
why
that helped,
you need to be proactive to look
yeah.
for and jump on. Hey, that was a great job you did. It's exactly what I was looking for. Oh, okay, I know how to do that now going forward.
Oh
As
yeah, that communication. But one thing I do is some of my tasks are repetitive, like any other business, right? So you have a high detailed task like a UI UX programmer, things like that that you don't really have procedures for. But a lot of tasks can be procedural based. So what I tend to do is create a service operating procedure, and I found that creating a simple one is better than a complicated one. And so I end up doing a video. This is how you do this
Very
thing.
nice, very nice.
And then
Which
I
actually
have
works better
one,
with the
two,
younger
three, four,
generation.
five. This is how you do this thing. And I do a
Very good,
written and a little video. And
very
I
nice.
try to make it as simple as possible. These are the things you need to look out for. And then some of it has to be reiterated. I'll put it in text underneath it. And so you see these people that have a super complicated manual. I said, for these kind of tasks, no one's going to read that stuff. You
Yeah,
know, they need something.
keep keep it simple,
This
stupid.
is yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah.
Or
Make it.
a little job aid next to their laptop, next to their screen on steps on this process for something they're doing a lot until they have it down. I mean, that's
Yeah.
perfectly valid. I think it's very important that you have those tricks on them getting to the job. Another thing too, by the way, someone starts a job and you're telling them all this stuff about the company, about the expectations, about the customers, and it can't help but be overload. So you're asking to drink
Mhm.
from a fire hose. And so now, as we settle down, of the things we talked about, here's what's most important, and then here's a reminder, and here's a video.
But you're
That
talking about expectations. You're like, what? For example, I'm an expert at A, B, and C, and someone comes on there and they're not effective in that position, right? But of course you're not, because you've been doing this thing for years. So you gotta know all the nooks and crannies and stuff. So what I end up doing for some of the repeatable tasks is like, look, if they're 50% as efficient as I am, I'm keeping them. That's pretty darn good. So people
especially on
have
the
an
shoot.
expectation that everyone has to do the perfect, and that's not realistic. Because if I'm a
Very
business owner, I have a lot of talent. I was a programmer, I was a UI UX guy, a software architect, a project manager. A marketing relationship type of individual. But I'm the owner. I'm going to love this stuff more than anyone else. So why would I expect a contractor to pick it up and be better? I mean, and if they are, great. I want them to
Yeah.
be better than me. But
Yeah.
realistically, most of them, I try to get up to the 50, 60% level, because my 50, 60% level is 100% for the customer,
Yeah.
and so that's the way I think for my expectations in order to make things happen.
And let me just add to that to say, um, praise progress towards the end goal. So if they start at,
Mm.
and everyone starts at, getting to learn the job and stuff, and maybe they're 30%. So if you get them to
Mhm.
50%, that's good. But then you could probably get them beyond that,
Mhm.
and if you keep noticing and keep talking about them, about the new challenges of the job, or adding responsibilities as they're able. So that's a great, because now you're turning the job into a career path, which is
Yeah.
ultimately what everyone wants. No one just
Well,
wants a
those skills,
job,
those skills, those skills you can take on a lot. Those, especially the soft skills. The soft skills are more important in many regards, not all regards, than technical skills.
Absolutely.
Parker had an interesting question, and I think we kind of went over it a little bit. Say someone shows up at 8:30, like they're supposed to show up at 8:30, they show up at 8:30, but they're not really productive till 10:30, right?
So they're
Remember that
basically
the
gaming.
coaching
They're
thing?
gaming the system. They did exactly what you said. They got there at 8:30, but then they went and got coffee, and then they made the rounds talking to people, and then they settled in at 2 hours later. So that would be, again, a discussion. Parker, glad you're making it here on time. That's very important, and I
Mhm.
saw that you're on time. You're one of the best people on time, but you kind of undo that if you go and take a break for 2 hours before you dig in. So can we cut that down to 15 minutes, to get coffee and say hi to one or two people? Uh, and my guess is, he can, or she can.
Well, there's also the thing that you brought up before, about what time do you get up, what's your morning routine. Like one of my coaches, we build a morning routine. I get up 5 in the morning. As a single father, I have to do a lot of stuff, right? And so I have a morning routine, and I figure out how can I be productive at a certain time. It took a hard switch. It was very difficult to do that because I used to work at night. So if you could get some routines down, or have them agree to, making those shifts, they may be more productive when they go in. And sometimes when I had my own office for my gaming company, I learned when not to say stuff,
Sure.
because it wasn't worth it. Is it worth it? I had one guy come in, and he lived kind of far, and he was doing his best to make it on time, and he was a brilliant programmer. But one time I said to him, "Are you wearing your pajama pants on?" And he says no. I said, "Okay," and I moved on because no one would see him. He's doing a great job.
Then who
He just
cares?
want to
Yeah.
bluntly ignore. He didn't want to talk about it. I shouldn't even brought it up. I just thought it was kind of funny that, like, you're wearing your sleeping pants on.
This is on the Zoom call.
No, no, no. It was just in person. But the thing is, we didn't have
Okay.
clients coming that day, and he's sitting down in the, he's just. It wasn't a big deal,
So
really, in that
So
situation. But I just
yoga
said,
slacks for a
okay,
lot of women.
fine.
They're comfortable. Hey, if you're comfortable, what the heck? And
Yeah,
that brings up a good point, though. It's sort of, why focus on the things that don't matter? If they're
yeah.
if the
That's a good
customer's
way of
happy with
saying
them,
it.
who cares? Who cares how long their hair is, or who cares if they, you know, have their own routine? Or I had a salesperson that, he asked, "Hey, can we get cereal here so I can grab cereal, grab breakfast here at the office?" Well, he was a really good salesperson. Yes, we can. If that's
Yep,
if that does,
yep.
I'll buy a box of cereal, and you take 10
Yeah.
minutes
I
and
had
have
a
it.
refrigerator. I had a refrigerator full of Mountain Dew. That's what
Yep.
I
Okay.
had. And then I had a game room. I had a game room for them too. And then I gave them all Nerf guns. But it was a different age
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, yeah, no,
So,
Nerf guns still work now. Google does that. So, in fact, my
oh, they
last
do.
last book I the last book I did was called, "Work Made Fun Gets Done." So
Oh,
I've done 31 books, and this is one that came out in the last years. If I get Work Made Fun Gets Done, and it's just 400 real life examples of what people do to make their own work
yeah.
more fun, or
They're
that in a
allowed to buy.
team.
I bought them Nerf guns, and then but they're allowed to bring their own. I had a machine Nerf gun with the tripod and everything.
Yeah. So yeah,
So I
that's
was
all
I was
that's all
I was
part of it.
like, yeah, I said I'm gonna be able to reach everyone with this thing, you know.
You seem like you'd
Um,
be a
so,
fun person to work for.
yeah, well, I don't have that gaming company anymore, but I really did enjoy it for a number of
Yeah.
reasons. Like I used to be able to work in the where we're at. There's a gym right inside there and all that stuff, right? So I was able to go to the gym, take a shower, come into the office. You know, I had a really cool lifestyle routine, you know, and then
Mhm.
programmers and designers work together. So that's one thing I do miss, having that tactile, that face to face type of stuff. You know, I'm doing more in the networking stuff. Um,
Yeah.
Not to shut this down, but we have to probably close this out in about 3 or 4 minutes because
Okay.
I have to go to the bus stop and pick my daughter up. And
Okay.
this is a
Cool.
great discussion. So, Dr. Nelson, I do appreciate it. But I think there's a couple of comments on there, and it says when you have processes, it creates sustainability and repeatability.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Hmm.
so when you're hiring, before you hire the person, do you have the processes for that job down? Do you have a job description? And I'd recommend for the job that you're hiring them for, if you have other people that have done that job or are doing it now that are good at it, make sure you use them to help update the expectations, because you want to work off of your best, and give them a
Hmm.
model of, here's what our best performers do to handle customer complaints, for example, or whatever it might be, and then bake that into your processes and expectations, and so they'll be the best too once they learn from that person. You might even have
And
that
I think a
person
lot of
be
people
a mentor.
a lot of them don't hire in from within, you know. So the best person to hire is a recommendation or someone they know or move someone to one position to another position, you know,
Hire,
to
hiring people through.
yeah, to have a more seniority because sometimes people need a change and they need to change to something they're good at, you know.
Yeah.
So I always found that that's great. That's one reason I used to pair the developer with the designer because they
Yeah.
used to think they're
Good.
so
Smart.
different. They're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
different. And they're like, wow, this is how you do it? Oh, I can build an animation this way. Why, if
Yeah.
this, you can do this
Yeah.
function. And it adds
And
a type of
you
synergy that's pretty exciting.
want to up the standard even more, bring in a customer, have them be part of that team, and wow,
Oh,
now we're looking
yeah.
at
Yeah, it's
the whole
true.
process here with the person with the end expectation in hand, and have them say,
Yeah.
that sounds nice, but I wouldn't be willing to pay more for that. So okay, let's nip that in the bud. And so yeah, that kind of getting out of the silos is a proven strategy for improving things. The other, so yeah, good conversation. Uh,
Yeah. Well,
Great
well,
questions. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
they
not sure
are
how
great.
far we got on the agenda.
I really enjoyed this. I know you guys can't read this, and then later on I'll go in the chats and fill it out. But I recommend you to try to connect with Bob.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
just
yeah.
said Bob. Yeah, and I'll
Let me
give the
upload.
link in there. But it's Bob's thing, and my thing is if you just want to have a chat, you can book 15 minutes. And if you have any kind of business or flow issue or strategy you want to talk about on LinkedIn, it's free. Just grab 15 minutes. But
Yeah, I appreciate
so
that.
I'll take that.
And another thing, just to, I want to honor something I put out there for anyone on the call. If you um, if you email me your mailing address, I'll send you a book of your choice of the ones I have. And um,
Wow.
yeah, well,
So is there a list of where your books are at, just so people know?
I there is on nelson-motivation.com is my
Okay. So
online
what I
bookstore.
want you to
And
do,
I've
Dr.
got, you
Nelson, is
see, like it's like 20 books, and you pick any of them out, and I'll send you that one at
wow.
my expense.
So give me that link offline, and then I'll add it to
Okay.
the chat. And
And
then
then
if I find,
you got to email me though, or else I won't know where to send it. So
oh yeah,
Bob at drbobnelson.com or bobrewards1001 at gmail.com. Either one of those. Just email me your best preferred mailing address, and a book of your choice. I mentioned my most recent. I've got like I've done 31 books, and I've got just a few of them here. But the another one that kind of touches on what we've talked about, 1,001 Ways to Engage Employees, would be another one. I also have Recognizing and Engaging Employees for Dummies. So you know.
I have a suggestion, Dr. Nelson. The next book should be talking about managing remote teams, because
Yes.
solopreneurs is such a huge thing.
Yes.
I got like 30 people that work for me, but they're not employees.
I've
And
got
so
a.
their
We could do
motivations are a bit different.
next time we talk. We just do 100% on things you could do for remote teams. I've got a whole bunch of approaches and real life
Yeah, I would say
examples.
remote teams and partners, because certain times you deal with partners for various reasons. Because a lot of my partners have ancillary type of services where I don't do that in particular, but it's sort of in my realm. But I run the client and said, well, that would be better if you dealt with this person because he's an expert in that particular thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes. So please connect with him on LinkedIn, have a chat with him. And then as soon as you connect, you will have his email address on his profile. And
Yeah.
then I'll grab the link. I'll put it in the chat
I could also,
tomorrow.
if they don't. Thank you, and I could also send a list of the books. They can pick whatever they want. Anyway, glad
Yeah.
to do that. I appreciate people showing up, and the books aren't doing people any good in my garage, so I'm trying. I don't mind sending out some to people that cared enough to show up today. So thank you again for that, and thank you, Troy, for having me on. A real
You're
pleasure.
an awesome guest, and as you
Anytime,
corrected
let's
me,
do it again.
I'm always taking in good advice, right? You're like, oh, no, forget the list. Let's talk to the people. I'm like, you know what? Dr. Nelson's right. Let's just do that. So I think that
Well, hopefully we got
taking
there
that
when
lesson for everyone else, sometimes you got to just go with the flow and not take things personal, because at the end of the day, it's really about the people. And again, you're right. So thank you again, Dr. Nelson. And hopefully
Thank
we'll
you,
talk
Troy.
soon and I'll get that information.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all.